the Futureverse is probably one of the more professional Web3 groups I have worked with out of everyone. Very, very professional. Everything, you need sign off, check, branding needs to be on point. Like they are serious when it comes to everything. And it's really kind of fresh. It reminds me more corporate times instead of the Web3 grunge, trying to do memes and stuff.
Welcome, guys. Today we're talking about Polemos with Cavan. Appreciate you coming through. So this morning I actually went to the Polemos platform because I was like, all right, we're talking. I need to make sure that I know how to do this. So it was actually pretty simple where you go, you log in with your wallet. It does, for the Futureverse side, you do need to sign in with your Future Pass wallet. And then it showed me like a full list of all of the assets that I had on the Root network. And so I picked one of my Surreal Escapes and it showed up pretty quickly. I was like, damn, this is pretty smooth and quick. But it said we have a potential of earning like 5 USD a day. When you go to the website itself, it says it's a certain price for like a 4-hour window. So that was the first thing that I just want clarification on. So is it that amount that you'd have to pay every 4 hours if you were to rent? Is the potential earning something that's guaranteed, or do we just kind of put it in the stake and then we kind of wait and see if somebody ends up renting it out?
Exactly. So it comes, so there's two facets. So we'll touch on the renting first. So if you as a player just want to get in and play some Third Kingdom, some TTK, you want to try out the game, you'll rent it out and you select how long you want it. And it can go for, I think the minimum is 4 hours right now, and then it can go like to 2 weeks. So you can decide how long you want to hold it. And it is for every 4 hours, it'll increase that price by that, whatever that is per 4 hours. So that's how that increments, and then you can do those increments of 4 hours to decide how long you want it. Let's say you're wanting it for like the rest of a season. We're actually thinking of expanding it so that you could have it for a full season, because then that would kind of make more sense for how the seasons are working in TTK. Or if maybe there's a limited time event, which we may or may not be hosting in the next week or two, where if you get a certain amount of prestige, or if you do a certain amount of missions in the episode 2, you can get bonus rewards that PLMS or we will be sponsoring. So, just having like little tournaments, because we think of it from a platform wide kind of situation where if it's a game where there's a heavy competitive in element to it, so like you got a 4-hour tournament that's coming up on Saturday, maybe you want to rent it out just for those 4 hours. So it just gives you that little bit of an edge. Maybe you want this really expensive NFT that you can't, or this collectible you can't afford to buy outright, but the holder will not be using it. So they're like, oh man, I'm busy this weekend. I'm going to stake it on the platform. And then they still earn from that. And the player gets a chance to maybe earn a massive prize pool of whatever is in that reward.
Well,
so that's on go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just going to say, well, when you word it like that, it is really interesting, because right now for like TTK, it's not like, it's dynamic in a sense, but when you say, hey, like, if it's a shorter period and they end up changing how the game goes, I think that that's something that's going to entice people, because so far it's a fairly passive experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And the way I'm looking at it, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm just getting into the episode 2. I'm just generating my energy so that I can start sending out some missions and whatnot. So just playing around with it myself. But I could imagine you could set up an event where, for the weekend, a whole weekend, you have 48 hours, the person or like the top 5 who send in accomplish the most amount of missions, they get bonus rewards. And we could have a leaderboard based on who finished the most missions, or who were able to collect the most mycelium. I think there's some cool little leaderboards we could set up. And I'm actually trying to meet with Kyle hopefully later this week, and we can actually discuss with him, and he, I'm sure, has some really cool ideas to make this more of an event, more of like a social thing. We'll gather in the Discord and see, like, hopefully you have players that are working together, like, oh yeah, you need to re-roll that mission. That mission's not going to quite work. This one would be good. And then what you're going to be doing is renting out, and I'm sorry, I forget their names, but like a seeker or a party bear to improve your chances or reduce the duration. And then that's the other element of being able to run on the platform to improve your mission efficiency. And so that's kind of what and feel free to correct me if any of that doesn't make sense.
Oh, no. You nailed it. You nailed it. It was really good. So it's interesting hearing you describe this as well, and I feel like I'm repeating myself because I said that earlier, but the you having the partnership, it sounds like it's not just Futureverse is using you as a rental service for its players, you guys are actually wanting to kind of do your own rewards mechanisms and offer something to the Futureverse community that's using your platform.
Yeah, I mean, we have to think back. What is Polemos's main goal? And we're trying to be an on-ramp for traditional gamers into the Web3 experience. And so we not only want to just provide this service that helps reduce the barrier of these very expensive collectibles, but also make events and content, education, all of these different things that will help them easily and seamlessly move into this, find friends within the games that they're or the ecosystems that they're participating with. Hopefully they find people like you or other players in the TTK area or the ecosystem, that player base, and they'd actually be able to make friends. And then really, when you come to gaming, you have to find a group to play with. That's almost how any game actually builds retention, is once they have a game that is retaining people, that they're playing together, they're strategizing together. That's how you build a gaming community, at least in my opinion. And I think that we're going to try and be one of those links that helps games do that successfully and then start to grow their player bases. And then, all of these visions of the actual usefulness and the utility of Web3 elements will actually connect. And then gamers will be like, wow, okay, NFTs are not a scam. There's actually really cool things that can happen with this ecosystem. So yeah, that's the main goal of what we're trying to do.
Well, on the spaces that happened the other day between the Polemos and Futureverse leads, they commented about how you guys were potentially having some bigger onboarding event for Web2 gamers, potentially in the millions of players that would be introduced to it. And I guess my thought with that, or I don't know if we'll call it like a concern, but for the way that TTK currently works is it feels like you have to have certain components, and renting might not necessarily be that advantageous or give you that many perks. But hearing that the Readyverse experience is supposed to have fluffs and party bearers being open sometime later today when we're recording. I know Aaron said that yesterday. So when you look at those kind of things, is it, well, all right, maybe you're right about the TTK thing, but there's going to be other opportunities within different games that Futureverse and potentially other platforms would have for those specific assets to take advantage of Polemos.
100%. You're right there. Obviously, I'm looking at TTK, and there are some really cool elements there. Is it the perfect example of what is useful for a lending and borrowing system? I wouldn't say it's quite there yet. Maybe it will be in the near future. But the ideas and what I've heard of what they're building, and not just the Readyverse or open Readyverse, there is a lot of things that are being built in projects that are being onboarded that I think there's going to be a lot of utility. And now that we're connected to TRN and being able to actually integrate with the whole stack, I think that that's going to be just something that, as your interoperability of all of these different games starts to grow, that makes it so much more valuable for players to want to rent. And then hopefully the end goal is that they love it so much, they've rented it, maybe they earned enough, that then they want to go and buy the asset. And then it's going to steadily increase the floor price of all of these assets, increasing the value, and really just making people enjoy the experience more and more.
And so renting out, though, you guys have it only in USDC, is that correct?
As of now, we plan on, we'd love to have it so whatever game that, or whatever ecosystem they're enjoying in the current moment, they could get rewarded in that method. So one of our grand visions is that you could pay with any token, you could be rewarded with whatever token you want to, and there'd be more of a dynamic system, so that, let's say, the root token for TTK, you'd be able to directly get paid in TTK, then go and spend it more to get those kingdom coins, and then you'd have a nice cyclical kind of system and grow your, do more missions, grow your surreal escapes faster, and accomplish whatever your main task is. Or if you're purely an extractor, you're just looking for some money, you can still do that and pull it out in USD.
And one of the cool things with you guys as well that I noticed is that you have kind of like every single different payment rails. So MasterCard, Visa, Apple Pay, Google. How hard is that to integrate within crypto, or is it 2025 now and it's easy?
I mean, you're going to start seeing a lot more people get integrated. I know, like, there's several platforms that we've been working with that now have Stripe, and it is working and starting, that onboarding step. Especially, I think with Trump's administration, there's been a lot of barriers that are getting reduced, or at least perceived to be reduced, and so a lot more players are getting into the game. But I mean, it was tough. It's definitely not super easy, and I mean, there's always some elements that are not going to be super enticing to some people, like KYC. So that does happen in some of these on ramps. So yeah, but super excited to get a lot of this out and just hopefully make the experience easier for traditional gamers.
So just to look at the platform and give like thoughts, I guess, when I'm looking at it, I'm assuming the cost of renting would be changed if there is a high demand for a particular asset. Would that be the right way of looking at it?
Yeah. So right now, the way we're setting it up is purely off of floor price. Whatever the floor price is, that is what we're setting a percentage based on whatever that floor price is at the current moment. We are planning on making that dynamic, that is driven by analytics of what could be useful, what can have the best return on investment, and try to make it some kind of proportion, so that one, it's still good for the renters and they still want to rent it. It's still valuable, it's still profitable, but the lenders are still getting as much profit out of it as they can, especially if they have a very rare or unique NFT or collectible. So they want to do that. Eventually, we're going to have that as an option for those like giga whales who don't even want to spend time trying to figure out what to price their assets. But then for some people who just want to know the technicalities. Like, okay, I know my asset's exactly worth 1.5 ETH. I know that if I want to rent it out, I want to rent it out at this amount. They'll be able to select and choose that. But that is, it's on our roadmap, I believe, later this year.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's cool of the aspect of like, hey, you just like connect your wallet, throw the assets in, and then woo, we're good. You know what?
Yep,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
Welcome,
Yeah, yeah.
welcome to the future type of deal.
Yeah, I know that in like Illuvium specifically, we have over like 700 assets in just the land side, but then the alluvials themselves, some of the players there, they have like hundreds or even thousands, and so they don't want to go through and list each individual one because they all have individual stats, and I imagine there's similarities with a lot of the Futureverse assets, so making it a lot easier for them just to stake, get that passive income, and be able to move on.
Well, can you give us like any insights, I guess, if you're able to, about like how Illuvium's gone with the renting? Do you feel like a lot of people are using that? Are whales happy with it? Are new users excited about it? How is, I guess, just like a broad scope of how has it been with Illuvium?
Yeah, it's a great question. Honestly, they've been in a cycle of building, and so there hasn't been a major amount of demand. Well, we'll be completely honest there. But I think that once they go through their next big marketing push, especially for their Leviathan tournaments, there's going to be huge utility in renting out these alluvials for the tournaments and for the leaderboard. They also have a ranked queue that's going to be important, and so I think that's where it's really going to drive a lot of traffic to our platform, because I imagine some of those assets will be maybe expensive, or maybe players just don't want to risk holding onto that asset, and maybe they want to rent it out. But yeah, there's a variety of things that are contributing to that. But for the users and the user experience, stakers have loved it. We before we did our migration, getting Futureverse on, we had thousands of assets staked from all different types of collections. Most of the users stated it was a really good experience, especially with the UI interface and everything. There is one issue which is very clear, and it's something that we are pushing to have integrated, and that is a batch function. And you'll notice this with Futureverse too. If you have like over 200 assets, you still need to go through and stake them individually, and that's not a great experience. It could take a little bit of time to get that done. And as soon as we have like a maybe a shopping cart kind of way where you can quickly like tick all of the ones you want or select all and then just stake them. Simple, easy process. That's what we're trying to go for. Make it as simple as possible.
For the Polemos token and like the platform itself, talk to me a little bit about that and what kind of the plans around all of that is. I'm assuming there's extra like incentives for people using your platform as you guys are growing out here. So just kind of like a basic run through if I can.
Yeah, I wish I could touch more on that, but that one is going to have to stay a little bit behind closed doors for right now. We have a reward campaign and program written out, and I'm sure we'll be sharing a white paper in the near future. But obviously, first we need to get our token out. And so we're going to be having our TG very soon. At least it's planned for Q2 sometime. So as soon as that happens, I think that's going to be a big major step. We might do an airdrop campaign before that, but I think the airdrop meta kind of faded in a lot of people just extract, they leave. It really doesn't make your token pop off, and we really are focused with long-term growth with our token, and I think that's something that we're just going to try and maybe avoid, but it's still on the books, it's still a potential. So yeah, as far as that's all I'll be able to say. In terms of utility of what our token can do, we plan on having it as a prime use case for any of the lending and borrowing. A lot of the other features that we're planning on adding in the future also could be utilized with that token. And then what else? There's quite a few other things that I can't actually think off the top of my head, just because that's not something I've been thinking of since we don't have a TG yet. But we will be making a lot of posts educating and showing off how cool our token will be once it does go live.
On that Spaces, there was a or kind of a backstory, I guess, about how there was a community member in Futureverse that connected Futureverse to Polemos originally, and then this partnership formed. Can you talk a little bit about how it's been working directly with the Futureverse team at all?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you've been following us, you've been following Futureverse, we've been partnered for a while now, actually, including all the way down to permissionless last September. That was an awesome experience, meeting the team, going through and just seeing what they were building as we hosted our booth together at permissionless. It was a lot of fun meeting them. They have some really cool ideas. We have the same ideologies about interoperability and open gaming experience, and it's just something we're really excited to. It's just a clear partnership of how we can work together. Obviously, our founders know the Futureverse founders really closely. They've been friends for a long time. So now working with the team side by side, and even doing a content plan, it's been a really really quality time with them. The Futureverse is probably one of the more professional Web3 groups I have worked with out of everyone. Very, very professional. Everything, you need sign off checked. Branding needs to be on point. Like, they are serious when it comes to everything. And it's really kind of fresh. It reminds me of more corporate times instead of the Web3 grunge, trying to do memes and stuff. I do feel like this is a professional outlook, and they are driven, and they have a clear vision and path that they're trying to push forward.
Final things. Anything that we haven't touched on that you wish we did? And for people that are just hearing about Polemos, how do they get involved? What's the first steps?
Yeah, I would say right now we are about to start really pushing our engagement and our community growth. And so if you want to be a part of that, I would definitely suggest join us in our Discord. We're going to have a bunch of game nights, tournaments. It may be Futureverse related, it might be other game related, but it'll all be free and open to anyone to kind of join. And you don't necessarily need to rent anything. You can purely like play for some. It could even be non-Web3. We're just trying to really get some players connected, have some fun. In the next week, we will be in the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing that massive partnership with that Web2 company, and we'll start funneling and start doing that testing. And so we're going to need people that are really happy and excited about Web3, that are here to educate and start on-ramping those players. And so that's another big part of what I'm trying to do, is just build a very warm and non FUD kind of community, because we see that, and when we see these people that have just been burned by all these projects and they hate Web3 now. And so if you're someone who just really loves it, and you see what the utility and the use cases would be, definitely feel free to join us there. But feel free to follow us on X. We'll be posting everything we do there. We're dropping a bunch of guides in the near future, and especially if you are really really well knowledgeable in the space, love to connect, and then maybe even collab on different ways to build content around different Futureverse projects. But otherwise, I don't have much else. I really, really appreciate you giving me the time, Shirley.